Braced for battle, the FA and the Premier League join forces against the European Super League. They say they will do whatever it takes to defend football against the elite group, with top managers now weighing in too.
It's not a sport when the relation between the effort and the success, the effort and reward don't exist. So it's not a sport.
Also tonight, a home cure for COVID. Government hopes for a 2-pill treatment ready by autumn. Shock in Northern Ireland after a bomb was found outside the home of a female police officer. And born to be wild, the homegrown cheetahs and their new life giving hope for conservation.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Footballing authorities and the government today joined the attack to stop some of Europe's richest clubs forming a breakaway Super League. The Premier League and the FA are threatening to do whatever it takes to prevent that going ahead, including legal action. And the Prime Minister says he is looking to stop what he describes as a cartel through legislation. But the president of one of the clubs involved said the new league would save football. Here's our sports editor, Steve Scott.
We want our Chelsea back! We want our Chelsea back!
Another day, another fans' protest. Tonight at Stamford Bridge, where again there was defiance at the greed of a chosen few. Chelsea among the Premier League's 6. Earlier, the 14 clubs who make up the rest of England's elite met and discussed their options over the Super League. In a statement afterwards, they said they unanimously and vigorously rejected the plans. They went on, the Premier League is considering all actions available to prevent it from progressing, as well as holding those shareholders involved to account under its rules. Last night, Leeds players made it very clear where they stood. Today, their sentiments were echoed by Marcus Rashford. And across Manchester, Pep Guardiola, whose opinion contrasts directly with his bosses.
It's not a sport when the relation between the effort and the success, the effort and reward don't exist. So it's not a sport.
Boris Johnson is committed to stopping the project if football fails to do so, and today told Premier League chiefs he was ready with a legislative bomb, a message he clarified later.
How can it be right to have a situation in which you create a kind of cartel that stops clubs competing against each other, playing against each other properly, and if necessary, in order to protect that principle of competition, we will seek, as I said to those bodies earlier on, we will seek a legislative solution.
The man leading the breakaway has finally spoken about why. It's to save the game, he said.
Morimos.
We are dying. There is less and less audience and less money. We're all dying. The big ones, the medium-sized ones and the small ones.
At UEFA's Congress today, the most powerful man in world football removed any ambiguity about where he stood or what awaited the clubs if they went ahead with their plans.
If some elect to go their own way, then they must live with the consequences. This means either you are in or you are out. You cannot be half in or half out.
48 hours in, and both sides could not be further apart.
OK, so Steve, look, really tough talk from those opposed to this new league. Are they actually going to be able to back it up with action and stop it?
Well, there's a development in Spain tonight that will give them an indication of how big a challenge that is going to be. A court in Madrid has ruled that, as an interim ruling, that prevents UEFA or FIFA from blocking this Super League or bringing any sanctions against a player or a club who takes part in it. So the government lawyers here will now be going over that, poring over it to see its significance. The moral pressure from players continues today. Jordan Henderson, the Liverpool captain, has arranged a meeting of all Premier League captains tomorrow. Now, they're going to discuss their collective response. It would be remarkable if they all said, look, we're not going to play in this league. But it would be quite powerful if they managed to say, as a collective unit, that we do oppose it. Interestingly, both sides tonight are indicating that they want to talk to each other, but such was the force of the rhetoric today. I can't see that happening very soon.
OK, Steve, thank you very much indeed. Well, moving on now, the government is developing what could be a decisive new weapon in the fight against coronavirus. A task force is looking at antiviral treatments which could be used at home. Now, the hope is to have 2 pills ready for use by the autumn. And our health editor, Emily Morgan, is here with more on this. This could have a great impact, couldn't it? Is it actually realistic, do you think?
That's a very difficult question to answer, I think. The government obviously thinks it's a realistic target, and this new task force will obviously supercharge the search for any new drugs. There are a number of promising antiviral treatments in development, though, and I understand the government is already in talks with companies who are developing those treatments. So I think it would be very strange to put a time frame on it, a very specific time frame, if they didn't know there were promising drugs in late stage development. The point is that pharmaceutical companies have been developing and researching drugs, treatments alongside vaccines for a year now. Pfizer have an antiviral treatment in trials, and there are also others. So this could be very exciting. Antiviral treatments are used in pill form the moment someone is infected, and they can stop the virus from developing inside the body and prevent serious illness. So I think it's hoped that this task force will really emulate the success of the vaccine task force. But of course, it's completely dependent on the science and whether we actually get a successful drug. OK, Emily, thank you. Well, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon has confirmed a further easing of COVID restrictions will go ahead as planned on Monday. The continued fall in cases and the success of the vaccine rollout mean that beer gardens, cafes, shops and gyms will reopen as planned. Now, police in Northern Ireland say a bomb was left outside the home of a female police officer in County Londonderry. The device had been planted to the rear of the officer's car where her 3-year-old daughter sits and could have caused a large fireball. Now, police suspect dissident Republican group, the New IRA, is behind it. And our correspondent Dan Rivers has the latest.
This is being described as a callous attack on one of their own. The police service of Northern Ireland have sealed off the farm where the family of the female officer live. The bomb, containing explosives and a flammable liquid, was placed by the officer's car close to where her 3-year-old daughter would have sat. Had it gone off, both would have been engulfed. Today, the Assistant Chief Constable was blunt in his anger at the dissident Republican group, the New IRA, suspected of planting the bomb.
What is really distressing here is the terrorists placed the bomb at the rear of the car directly at the point where the victim's 3-year-old daughter sits. This demonstrates the complete and utter disregard for the life of a mother and her toddler. This simply beggars belief.
The New IRA's bomb-making capability was dramatically demonstrated in 2019 outside a Londonderry court. The murder of Lyra McKee the same year showed it was determined to kill. The young journalist shot by a masked gunman from the group targeting police officers nearby. Experts say the group's attempted attack is not linked to recent loyalist violence protesting at the Northern Ireland Protocol, but part of a wider campaign for a united Ireland.
A key target of the New IRA has always been the police, the PSNI. They very much believe that the police are the first line of defence of the British presence in Ireland. So the PSNI and in fact prison warders have remained a key target for the organisation.
Despite a complex MI5 operation to arrest key leaders of the New IRA last year, this latest attempt to kill an officer and their child shows the group remains a potent threat to peace in Northern Ireland. Dan Rivers, ITV News, Belfast.
A kitchen porter has described how he grabbed a decorative spear from a wall as he went face-to-face with the fishmonger's hall attacker. Lucas Kokaczyk was giving evidence at the inquest in the deaths of Jack Merritt and Saskia Jones. Another witness described how the terrorist claimed he had a bomb and was wearing a fake suicide vest. Martha Fairley reports.
With knife wounds to his hand and shoulder, porter Lucas Kokaczyk stands on the steps of Fishmonger's Hall on London Bridge, moments after being attacked. Inside, colleagues and guests attending a prisoner rehabilitation event were fighting to save the lives of Jack Merritt and Saskia Jones, who'd both been fatally stabbed by Usman Khan, a convicted terrorist who had also been attending. At the inquest today, Lucas, wearing black, described how he used a ceremonial spear to try to stop Khan, who was armed with 2 knives. He said, "For some reason, I decided to grab this boarding pike that was attached to the wall, and that was the best thing I could do. The next thing I remember, me going back to the lobby area and being with this man face to face. I decided he had to be hurt because I realised what was happening. I tried to stab him." Jeffrey Stevelman, the head butler for the fishmonger's company, described the absolute chaos inside. Alarms were going. Lucas was hitting the attacker with the pike, and chairs were being thrown. There was this Mexican standoff, he said, describing Khan. He stood there and opened his jacket and started shouting, "I've got a bomb. Call the police. I've got a bomb." I've never seen a suicide vest. It did not look real to me. In that split second, none of it seemed real. After demanding the locked front doors of the hall were opened, Usman Khan was chased along London Bridge, where he was killed by armed police. The suicide vest he was wearing was later confirmed to be fake. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Still to come, the ITV Evening News, the shrinking opportunities for young graduates, why employment schemes are being shelved due to COVID. And the British-born cheetahs now helping to save their species in the wild. And those stories and more after the break. Join me then.
At WeBuyAnyCar.com, you could find out how much your car's worth in under 60 seconds. Enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com.
Viper wins.
There's more coming now, watch out. On your left, on your left.
Right, Dick's coming towards us. For the head, for the head.
Nice one.
Got it.
If you've had a cough for 3 weeks or more and it isn't COVID-19, it could still be a warning sign. It's probably nothing serious, but it could be a sign of cancer. Just contact your GP practice.
Looks like you want McDonald's from Just Eat, yes? Well, we'll deliver for free. Zilch quiz, zero dosh, no money. We got it.
Somebody say Just Eat.
Car insurance from LV. We're here for you. And we pay out on 99% of claims. Buy direct at lv.com.
It's me, and I need to apologize. You know what makes me sad? I was fine while you are melting down inside. They throw you burning iron, you're drawn in the fire. It's been time that I wake up at night, shaking like a child.
there must be another way of living. Another way of living. Another way. Another way of living.
Hello again, welcome back. Fears were raised further today of a deepening jobs crisis for young workers. Although the overall unemployment rate has improved slightly over the last 3 months, the under-35s are bearing the brunt, with hospitality hit particularly hard. The number of UK workers on payrolls dropped by 56,000 last month, and it's fallen by 813,000 in a year. Most of those job losses, 78%, hit people under the age of 35, and more than half of them, 54%, were under 25. And for many university graduates, the outlook is especially bleak, as Richard Pallow reports.
So this is where I've been doing all of my university work for the last year, lectures, seminars.
The four walls of her family home that have become her campus. Casey's only been to the real one twice. Visualising any job is difficult right now. Her dreams of working for Leeds City Council scuppered after their graduate scheme was shelved.
It's hard to kind of reconcile the idea that all those years of studying and education, everything we learn about, doesn't translate into the real world. It's really difficult. We're kind of like this forgotten middle space, and we're all fighting for so few roles. It's pretty brutal.
Indeed, our ITV News survey backs that up. Of 146 of the UK's top employers, we found that 30% had made cuts to their graduate schemes since 2019. BT has halved its intake from more than 400 to 199. The estate agent Savills has reduced theirs by 28%, and recruits to the accountants KPMG fell by 27% over the last 2 years. Has it ever been tougher for graduates to find a job?
Well, the job market is more competitive. There certainly are higher levels of unemployment. I think that the number of opportunities that organisations are offering are starting to increase again, but we've already seen something a near 50% increase in the number of applications that we've received in the first 3 months of this recruitment season.
It's because those still unemployed from last year are competing directly against the class of 2021.
Just shatters your dreams and it shatters your aspirations.
Vikram's internship at one of the largest Swiss banks was cancelled. His vital chance to impress, gone.
It was pulled away, and it wasn't even because of my fault. It was not my fault at all. It was because of an external event like the pandemic. Some people in this town would say, "I told you so," because they would say, "Well, you're aiming high. It was never going to work out."
Vikram does remain positive, though the market is currently anything but. Richard Pallow, ITV News.
In other news, Northern Ireland's Assembly has voted overwhelmingly in favour of banning so-called conversion therapy. 2/3 of Assembly members today backed calls to outlaw any attempts to change someone's sexuality. And the UK government is expected to announce its promised plans to end the practice in the coming weeks. And the RAC says many roads in the UK resemble the surface of the moon after a record rise in pothole-related breakdowns. Call-outs tripled in the first 3 months of this year. Now, the government says it's speeding up its ambitious target to cut carbon emissions. That's going to mean fewer polluting cars, low carbon heating and a change in what we eat. The new plan is to reduce emissions by 78% of the levels seen in 1990 by 2035. And to do this, more than 40% of cars must be electric by 2030. That's up from 1% currently. And there's a £250 billion plan to replace gas boilers with greener heating like heat pumps. Flight costs will rise to 1970s and 1980s levels, and we're all going to face a 20% cut in meat and dairy in our diets by 2030. Well, our science editor Tom Clark is here. It's very ambitious. Is it realistic?
I mean, it's a reasonable question to ask because the scale of this is colossal. I mean, take housing, for example, makes up about 20% of our carbon emissions. To meet these targets, we need to retrofit about 29 million homes with an alternative to a gas boiler, more insulation. That would involve about 2 homes, just less than 2 homes every minute between now and when we get to this target. It's an astonishing task, but not an impossible one if you think back to what we've done in the past. So between 1968 and 1976, we retrofitted about 40 million appliances in 14 million homes to run on natural gas when that was discovered in the North Sea. We've done things like this before. The scale is huge, but all we need now really is clear policies from government on how they're going to deliver it. Something to match the stated ambition. We haven't seen that detail yet. It is a mammoth challenge. It should be deliverable. And don't forget, if we're serious about preventing a 3 degrees of global warming, which we're looking at by the end of this century, we're going to have to do this in order to get there, unfortunately, because that's what the science says.
OK, so it's going to be tough, isn't it, Tom? Thank you very much indeed. Now, the North Yorkshire Moors Heritage Railway may not be reopening until next month, but it seems that Hollywood A-listers get special treatment, especially when they have a film to make, like Tom Cruise.
Thank you. Hello, you're all beautiful here.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you.
Good luck with the filming.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Oh.
There he is. The actor was shooting a scene for the next Mission Impossible film at tiny Levisham Station, along with his huge crew. And finally tonight, the inspiring journey home for 2 cheetahs born into captivity. Brothers Saba and Nairo are now roaming free in a private game reserve in South Africa. They are the first cheetahs to be successfully placed in the wild after being born in the UK. And our senior international correspondent John Irvine saw the brothers in their new home.
Hello, boys.
He's tracking precious cats, and it's been a long chase, for they've been hunting.
As you can see, there's a bit of heavy panting going on, so I think there was a bit of running that took place.
Nairo is one of 2 cheetahs that arrived in South Africa, complete novices, but are now getting their teeth into things. He's calling out to his brother, Saba. Both of them are pioneers, the first of their species born in captivity in the UK and then successfully introduced to the wild in their native Africa.
These are now 2 free-roaming cheetah, totally self-sufficient, running around, hunting for themselves.
The brothers were born and reared in England by the Aspinall Foundation. Saba had to be hand-raised by the Aspinall family. He was as tame as you can get. When we found him in the bush, he looked anything but. The cheetahs arrived in South Africa 14 months ago, and after some training they were released here in the Mount Kamdaboo Game Reserve, where they responded to the call of the wild, making their first kill last August.
There were many critics that said it wasn't possible to rewild cheetah, but we've now proven that it is possible and successful.
There are more wild rhinos in Africa than cheetahs, which tells you how much trouble these big cats are actually in. Not even the fastest animal on land can outpace the dire consequences of loss of habitat and an increasingly shallow gene pool. They may still wear collars for the sake of research, but here they are now regarded as wild animals. Born free they weren't. Living free they are. John Irvine, ITV News, South Africa.
Magnificent, aren't we? Now, just before we go, there's an update on our top story tonight, the growing opposition to the European Super League. Now, ITV News understands that Chelsea, which is one of the breakaway clubs, is actually drawing up documentation right now to withdraw from that Super League deal. And that would be a significant development, potentially a big blow to the plans. There'll be more on that on News at 10 with Raggy, but that's all from us for the moment. Bye-bye.